Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. We are going to start off with Francis Petrarch, which starts on page 2068. We're going to read some excerpts from the Canterbury Tales just to get a feel. Decameron, Hamlet, Petrarch, and some of Shakespeare's sonnets. The sonnets being some relevance. Let's go ahead and go to 2068 first and read about Petrarch, which, as we'll find, may mean actually that's his name. So it's the poet's name. Petrarch and the Love Lyric, his sonnets, starting on page 2068, are his sonnets. You may be familiar with sonnets from Shakespeare. He did a lot of sonnets himself. Okay. Although Petrarch, a contemporary of Dante and Boccaccio, lived and died in the Middle Ages, he did everything in his power to distinguish himself in his scholarship from the period he dismissed as the Dark Ages. Petrarch dedicated himself to the recovery of classical learning in a spirit commonly associated with a later period in which humanist scholars zealously pursued the rebirth of antiquity. Camden. So this is like the kind of the preface. So he prefaces it. If somebody narrates a preface for Francis Petrarch in the 14th century. And these sonnets were found to have been written. So we're going to get right down to the poetry portion, the good stuff. Of course, you know, you can take time to read the prefaces about Francis Petrarch and his sonnets and how they came to be. Give you a little bit of insights into a little bit more of insight into the sonnets that we're about to go into. So, without further ado, 1:1. You who hear in scattered rhymes the sound of those sighs with which I nourished my heart during my first youthful error, when I was in part another man from what I am now. For the varied style in which I weep and speak between vain hopes and vain sorrow, where there is anyone who understands love through experience, I hope to find pretty, not only pardon, but now I see well how for a long time I was the talk of the crowd. for which often I am ashamed of myself within. And of my raving, shame is the fruit, and repentance, and the clear knowledge that whatever pleases in the world is a brief dream. For our life is said to be but a vapor, or as he states, a brief dream. He's saying that life is short, and that he spent much of his time in negativity instead of enjoying himself in his lot in life, whatever that may have been. So, it was the day when the sun's rays turned pale with grief for his Maker, capital M, that must mean his God, when I was taken, and I did not defend myself against it, for your lovely eyes, lady, bound me. It did not seem to me a time for being on guard against love's blows. Therefore, I went confident and without fear. And so my misfortunes began in the midst of the universal tone. Woe. So he was not on guard against the blows of love, capital L, love's blows. So he went on confident and without fear. And so his misfortunes began in the midst of the universal woe, or the woe of love that we all can kind of identify with after gaining a healthy respect for getting your heart broken, I would assume. Love found me altogether disarmed. He was unprepared and unarmed. And the way opened through my eyes to my heart, my eyes which are now the portal and passageway of tears. Therefore, as it seems to me, it got him no honor to strike me with an arrow of that state, and not even to show his bow to you who were armed. Apollo, if the sweet desire is still alive that inflamed you beside the Thessalian waves, I can only imagine that means Thessalonia. Apollo being Paul's, related to Paul somehow. And if you have not forgotten with the turning of the years those beloved blonde locks, against the slow frost and the harsh and cruel time that lasts as long as your face is hidden, hiding. Now defend the honored and holy. Leaves you where you first and then I were limed, Limed. And by the power of the amorous hope, or the love-filled hope, that sustained you in your bitter life, disencumber the air of these impressions. Disencumber the air of those illusions. As he sees it. He's saying it's not as it seemed at first. Thus we shall then together see a marvel. With the number 2. As a footnote, and let's see what the footnotes of marvel has to say. Mental and physical wandering, as well as a moral mistake. Scattered rhymes, reference to the sonnet collection's title, Rhyme Sparse. R-I-M-E, and then the word sparse, as in few. Our Lady sitting on the grass and with her arms making a shade for herself. So, together we shall see a marvel. It doesn't necessarily mean always what it seemed at the very first, but as we'll find, something much deeper than he could have ever imagined. And that being the bonds of true love and not just the illusion of it at the very beginning, that the Cupid's arrow shooting us right in the heart. The illusion of that. So there's that, and the brief illusion of it. And then there's the aftermath, but then there's something way deeper than just that. As some see, and then some that give up on the idea altogether, as I digress, never get to see. Which is very unfortunate, and it's one of the saddest things, I think, on the face of the earth. Father in heaven, after each lost day, each night spent raving with that fierce desire, which in my heart has kindled into fire, seeing your acts adorned for my dismay, grant henceforth that I turn within your lights to another life and deeds more truly fair. So having spread to no avail the snare, my bitter foe might hold it in despite. The 11th year, my Lord, has now come round, since I was yoked beneath the heavy trace, that on the meekest ways most cruelly pity the abject plight where I'm found. Return my straying thoughts to a nobler place, and show them this day you were on Calvary. clear, fresh, sweet waters, where she who alone seems lady to me rested her lovely body. Gentle branch where it pleased her, with sighing I remember to make a column for her lovely side. Grass and flowers that her rich garment covered, along with her angelic breast. Sacred bright air where love opened my heart with her lovely eyes. Listen all together to my sorrowful dying words. If it is indeed my destiny, and heaven exerts itself that love, close these eyes while they are still weeping. Let some grace bury my poor body among you, and let my soul return naked to its own dwelling. Death will be less harsh if I bear this hope to the fearful pass. For my weary spirit could never in a more restful port, or a more tranquil grave, flee my laboring flesh and my bones. There will come a time, perhaps, when to her accustomed sojourn the lovely, gentle, wild one will return. So what he feared came upon him, and his beauty fled with no return. And he's loathing it. His heart is broken. There will come a time, perhaps, when to her accustomed sojourn, the lovely, gentle, wild one will return, and, seeking me, turn her desirous and happy eyes toward where she saw me on that blessed day. And oh, the pity! Seeing me already dust amid the stones, love will inspire her to sigh so sweetly that she will win mercy for me, and force heaven, drying her eyes with her lovely veil. From the lovely branches was descended, sweet in memory, a rain of flowers over her bosom. And she was sitting humble in such a glory, already covered with the lovely cloud. This flower, all by herself, was falling on her skirts, this one on her blondes, braids, which were burnished gold and pearls to see that day. This one was coming to rest on the ground, this one on the water, this one with the lovely wandering. Turning about seemed to say, "Here reigns love." REIGNS. How many times did I say to myself, full of awe, she was surely born in paradise. Her divine bearing, and her face, and her words, and her sweet smile had so laden me with forgetfulness. and so divided me from the true image that I was sighing. How did I come here and when? Thinking I was in heaven, not there where I was. It is work. From then on, this grass has pleased me so that elsewhere I have no peace at all. If you had as many beauties as you have desire, you could boldly leave the wood and go among the people. Boldly leave the wood and go among people. My ship, laden with forgetfulness, passes through a harsh sea at midnight in winter, between Scylla and Charybdis, and at the tiller sits my lord, rather my enemy, or what he considers to be. Or his boss. So he's at sea, and it's cold and it's wintry, and he wishes he was back with his love in a warm place, in a warm, sunny place. Each oar is manned by a ready, cruel thought that seems to scorn the tempest. In the end, a wet, changeless wind of sighs, hopes, and desires breaks the sail. A rain of weeping, R-A-I-N. A mist of disdain, wet and loosen the already weary ropes, made of error, twisted up with ignorance. My two usual sweet stars, or Laura's eyes, as it says in the footnote, Laura's eyes, are hidden, dead among the waves are reason and skill, so that I begin to despair of the port. He doesn't even want to get back to where the sea is going to meet the land. He isn't even looking forward to what's about to come, because his love is gone. So, grieving rhymes of mine, so that hard stone, whereunder lies my darling, lies my dear, and cried to her to speak from heaven's sphere. Her mortal part with grass is overgrown. Tell her I'm sick of living, that I'm blown. By winds of grief from the course I ought to steer. That praise of her is all my purpose here. And all my business that of her alone. Do I go telling that how she lived and died and lives again in immortality, all men may know, and love my Laura's grace. So she's dead. Oh, may she deign to stand at my bedside when I come to die. And may she call to me and draw me to her in the blessed place. Okay, so that concludes Petrarch. Now let's read some of Shakespeare's sonnets, and then we'll go to lunch. Okay, it says here in the little preface thing, the same kind of preface that we saw amid the beginning of Petrarch, and makes abundant use of the puns on his own name, which become as rich here as the puns on Laura for Petrarch. While a smaller subset concern a dark lady. The poem circulated privately for many years. His sonnet sequence demonstrates Petrarchism's enduring appeal and endless flexibility. So you could basically go anywhere with it. Well, the true meaning remains with the writer's real true meaning, not with just how we see it. So to fully understand these sonnets, we have to know the writer, basically. So, knowing this is Shakespeare now, and not Petrarch, this is sonnet number 76. Why is my verse so barren of new pride? So far from variation or quick change. Why, with the time, do I not glance aside to newfound methods and to compounds strange? Why write I still, all one ever the same, and keep invention in a noted weed? Or keep my subject matter in a familiar garb? That, so that every word doth almost tell my name, showing their birth and where they did proceed. Oh, no, sweet love, Know. Oh, no, sweet love, I always write of you, and you and love are still my argument, or theme. So all my best is dressing old words anew, spending again what is already spent. For as the sun is daily new and old, so is my love telling what is told. This is Sonnet 116. Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Love is not love which alters when it alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. Oh no! It is an ever-fixed mark that looks on tempests and is never shaken, or storms. It is the star to every wandering bark, whose worth's unknown, although his height be taken, loves not time's full. Though rosy lips and cheeks within his bending sickle's compass come, love alters not with his brief hours and weeks. But bears it out even to the edge of doom. If this be error and upon me proved, I never writ, nor no man ever loved. Sonnet 129. The expensive spirit in a waste of shame is lust in action, and till action lust is perjured, murderous, bloody, full of blame, savage with a capital S, extreme, rude, cruel, not to trust, enjoyed no sooner but despised straight, past reason hunted, and no sooner had past reason hated as a swallowed bait, on purpose laid to make the taker mad. Mad in pursuit and in possession so, had having and in quest to have extreme, a bliss in proof and proved a very woe. Before, a joy proposed, behind, but a dream. All this to the world well knows, yet none knows well to shun the heaven that leads men to this hell. Or the hell of guilt, also a colloquial term for the vagina. So he's making a reference here to women. When love goes bad and cannot be recovered, yeah. The woe that is felt beyond that, when he literally calls it a hell. So his very next one, called My Mistress. My mistress's eyes are nothing like the sun. Coral is far more red than her lips is red. If snow be white, why then her breasts are dun. If hairs be wires, black wires grow on her heads. I have seen roses damasked, red and white, but no such roses see I in her cheeks. And in some perfumes is there more delight than in the breath that from my mistress reeks. I love to hear her speak, yet well I know that music hath a far more pleasing sound. I grant I never saw a goddess go. My mistress, when she walks, treads on the grounds. And yet, by heaven, I think my love as rare as any she belied with false compare. This is Sonnet 135. Whoever hath her wish, thou hast thy will. The poem plays on multiple meanings of what he means by will. A. What you want. B. Sexual desire. C. The poet's first name. D. Sexual organs, male or female. Or E. Shall. Or preferences. Basic preference. And will to boot, or in addition to, and will in overplus or surplus. More than enough, I am I that vex thee still. To thy sweet will making addition thus. Wilt thou, whose will is large and spacious, not once vouchsafe to hide my will in thine? Shall will in others seem right gracious, and in my will no fair acceptance shine? The sea, all water, yet receives rain still, and in abundance addeth to his store. So thou, being rich in will, add to thy will one will of mine to make thy large will more. Let no unkind, no fair beseechers kill, or let no ungenerous refusal kill any attractive suitor. Think all but one, and me in that one will. Reminds me of maybe a plight for equality. What is one person's will over another? What makes one person better than another besides seniority, talent, skill? Let the rich keep getting richer. Let the good keep getting better. The old keep getting older. And let thy will be done, whatever that may mean to the ones that are already successful, or to the one person that he's referring to here. It sounds like it may be a woman, but we don't really know that. It could be God. It could be... No, he is directly relating this to a woman. Whoever hath her wish, thou hast thy will. Whatever you want, let it be done. And will to boot. Will upon will upon will upon will. And keep adding unto her. He's saying, don't stop just for me. Take any suitor and add that unto thy will. For the sake of her will, her business, her prowess. The sea, all water, yet receives rain still, and in abundance addeth to his store. So he's saying that the ocean being so enormous, yet all the rain, or most of the rain is still, and all the water flows still into that large store of ocean. He's relating that very ocean to her. Let every creek, river, runoff, sprinkler, hose, river, and rain, whose will is large and spacious, shall will in others seem right gracious. And in my will no fair acceptance shine. He's saying, am I chopped liver here? The sea, all the water, yet receives rain still, and in abundance added to his store. The sea. So thou, being rich in will, add to thy will one will of mine to make thy large will even more. Let no unkind, no fair beseechers kill. Think all but one, and me in that one will. So think of me, like Lloyd always says, when you get in the big leagues, don't forget us little folks down here. That's what he always says to me. And I laugh and I say, Lloyd, you know I'm poor. And then he pats me on the back. He rubs the blade of my shoulder, and I go on my way.